Hi, this is John with Chest Freezer Cold Plunge, and in this video we're going to talk about what chest freezer is the best chest freezer for your chest freezer cold plunge or your chest freezer ice bath. And we're going to talk about the brand, whether you should buy new or used, what kind of interior should you get, is it the bare metal versus the white, a home chest freezer or one that's meant for commercial use, and we'll talk about the standard chest freezers versus the garage ready ones or the ones that are rated for outdoor use. So let me start by saying this. The best chest freezer that you can use for your cold plunge is the one that you can get. So if you have this vision of like the ultimate chest freezer that you want, but it's not available, if it's delayed in shipping or if there's a manufacturing delay, and that's going to put you off from really getting started into a cold water practice, then find another chest freezer. We have people that are getting chest freezers all over the world of various different kinds and sorts, and you can turn it into a cold plunge, like no matter what it is. Now, there's a lot of little details that go along with that, so do the best you can to get the best available for what your needs are and what your budget is. Those are all things to kind of balance out. Now, as far as the brand goes, let me suggest, and these are all guidelines by the way, again, if you can't get a chest freezer that meets the best practices, recommendations, get the one that you can get. Okay? So as far as the brand, I'm going to recommend that you stick with the major brands. These are the big name companies, and you want to look at the reviews on websites that sell these things, whether it's a big box hardware store or major online retailers. Look at the reviews. Find out what goes wrong with these chest freezers in the real world use, their intended use for food storage. And if they're having a lot of problems there in the food storage area from consumers that are not happy with that chest freezer, it's definitely not going to be a good choice for a cold plunge, okay, which is not its intended use. You can also look at Consumer Reports or other online consumer review companies or programs. They do the reviews of the different models, and they tell you what's great and what's not great, and they give them ratings. And those kind of places can also be really helpful to look at when you're trying to figure out what chest freezer. General rule of thumb, stick with major brands that have very high reviews. Now, as far as whether or not you should buy a new or used chest freezer, this really gets down to your budget. It's a simple matter of, do you have it in your budget, or can you plan to save up in your budget within just a few months to get a new chest freezer? That is clearly the best choice. If not, then get a used chest freezer. Sometimes you can pick them up for free. The clear disadvantage of the used chest freezer is that you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know how it was treated, how it may have been abused, what could have happened to it over the period of time that it was in use. So there's a lot of little things that you want to look at in terms of buying a used chest freezer. If you join my Facebook group, you'll find a used chest freezer buyer's guide that can help you go down the list of questions to ask before you spend any money on a used chest freezer. And there are ways to get started inexpensively, but even then there's time that goes into setting these things up, and expense. And if a used chest freezer dies on you because there were a few things that you did not check, then you're going to have to start all over from scratch, and that's time and money that's wasted. So clearly, if it's in your budget, the new chest freezer is the best way to go. Now, let's talk about the interior of the chest freezer. That would be the inside floor and walls. What kind of material is it made of? There are really two choices on this. You either have an interior that has a bare metal, or you have one that is white enamel. And some people think it's plastic, but I've never yet seen a chest freezer with a plastic interior. There might be one out there. There's a lot of chest freezers in the world, but if there is, I haven't seen it yet. So the difference between the two is this. The chest freezers with the bare metal interior versus the white, it's not going to come down to just the quality of that material that's in there, but the chest freezers that have that white metal interior, not only does that interior tend to be a higher quality of product, it's less susceptible to bending, cracking, and breaking, but the other components that go along with the chest freezer also tend to be of higher quality than the ones with the bare metal interiors. And that gets down to pretty much all the different parts of the chest freezer, including, and most importantly, the compressor. A stronger compressor, they tend to work more efficiently and more effectively. They get like twice the power, which means they'll be able to chill and cool your water down a lot faster than the ones with the bare metal interiors. But these are some things to think about. Now, what is the problem with the bare metal interiors? If that's all you can get, there is no problem. All you have to do is follow the other procedures, the other details about setting up the cold plunge. You can make a bare metal chest freezer work. You've just got to do the right preparation. really, and that's true regardless of which one you get. So the thing that you need to do additionally between or compared to those two is that the bare metal chest freezers, it's supposed to be aluminum, and that material is usually very flimsy and it dents and cracks very easily. The big issue though is that it's not pure aluminum. In most cases, when you get a chest freezer with that metal interior, it's got impurities in it, and those impurities will react with water. So unless you put some kind of liner into your chest freezer, and that's a whole other video we'll talk about, whether it's a permanent or a removable liner, that water is going to corrode the material and it's going to start to rust, break, and die on you a lot sooner. You'll get a much shorter lifespan out of that chest freezer than you would with one that has the enamel interior. And all you have to do is seal the seams correctly, and then you can fill that up directly with water if you want to do that. The other challenge with the bare metal interiors is that because they are flimsy, they are a lot more susceptible to cracking and breaking and leaking just under the weight of the water, or you getting in and out of it on a regular basis. The other issue with them is that if you plan to use some kind of sanitation, the method that you use for sanitation can also destroy or corrode the interior metals. So you just want to look into that and make sure that you're planning for the type of system that you want to set up. So the next thing we're going to look at or address is, should you buy a chest freezer that's meant for home use, or should you get something that's meant for commercial kitchens or retail stores? I've seen people with these ice cream freezers that have the lids on them, the glass sliding lids. If you get one that's meant for home use, the parts are going to be a lot more accessible. They are typically less expensive to maintain. They're a little bit easier to maintain. They tend to be better insulated than something like if you've got one of those chest freezers that are meant for like selling ice cream in a convenience store. The ones with glass lids, not very well insulated, so you're most likely going to have a higher electrical bill to keep that thing cold than you would with a standard chest freezer that has a standard lid on it. Now, there are chest freezers that you can get that are meant for commercial kitchens that actually do have a nice thick lid on them, and if you can get one of those at a discount at an auction or a sale somewhere, that's probably going to be fine. As far as the garage ready or energy efficient chest freezers, a lot of this has to do with where you live. If you live in a very hot climate, and by that I mean hotter or warmer than like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you're in a place where it's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that's generally the typical operating range for a chest freezer from most manufacturers. And if you have it in an environment that's warmer than that, that's outside of the operating range, and you want to check this on the manufacturer's website before you choose to buy a chest freezer, that chest freezer can either work much harder than it has to, or if it's a lot colder than the operating range, the materials, the fluids that are inside the compressor and the chiller lines that can affect the viscosity, those fluids can freeze over and then it won't work at all. Now, some chest freezers, if you live in a very cold environment, are actually manufactured to work in sub-freezing temperatures. And if you can find one that's designed for that, that is awesome, because it's going to work in your environment without having to do anything special to accommodate it. Otherwise, you need to keep it in a climate-controlled location, like maybe an inside house, or you'll have to set up some kind of heater or a heating lamp or something to keep that thing from freezing over. As far as the hotter environments, they'll work in a warmer environment. Just realize that it's going to have to work, that compressor will need to work much harder in order to chill the water down. Those are the big questions to ask in terms of guiding your chest freezer choice. The next video we're going to talk about is on a separate video, just because we're running short on time, and this is a whole other subject, is the size of the chest freezer. Does size matter? And when it comes to chest freezers, yes, it does. So we're going to talk about that in the next video. If you do like this video, please like or subscribe. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Join my Facebook group, and if you want to support the effort of what I'm doing here to help educate people about how they can get into an easy do-it-yourself cold water immersion practice, please check out my website. That's at www.chestfreezercoldplunge.com, and you can find those links also in the comments section. So happy cold plunging!